So I don't know, Aize, what do you feel when you think about integration? What are some of the thoughts that come to your mind? Um,
Yeah. So for me, am I sounding muffled to y'all?
No, there's an echo again.
oh, is it? I don't hear an echo.
I don't
Try
hear it
again.
now.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
All right. So when I think about integration, I'm in agreement with you, Mancho, in terms of there being definitely a cost attached to it. The thing that, and it just might be my orientation in terms of my view of the world. But when I think about cost, I'll often, and it might be the balance piece, the my eye piece of it, but I also think about benefit too. So I do like a cost benefit analysis to examine, just what's the deal with integration, and so I'm definitely a staunch proponent of do for self, and ensuring that we have all of the necessary resources to make sure we take care of our own. I would really be cool if we only did that, just took care of our own. But the reality is that that's not the world or the space that we exist in right now. And so when I consider the cost, I think that one key component, and the reason why it's not true integration, is because the key piece is that it's not a fair and equal cultural exchange. And I think that the biggest issue is that, especially when we find ourselves as people of African descent in this country, a lot of the mental health issues that we experience sometimes only exist within this context. And it's because we're separated from cultural norms that reinforce who we are as African people. And there's been a number of times where I've spoken with brothers from Ghana, Nigeria, and removed from this particular experience in this country, where they're diagnosed with bipolar, schizophrenia, just all of these disorders. When you place them back within the context of their appropriate culture, then a lot of it dissipates. Not all of it, but a lot of it dissipates. And so I think that here, in terms of the cost of integration, is that we're not necessarily, number one, we've lost touch with our culture, many of us. And there's no quote unquote cultural norm for us as Black people because we're not myopic and or monolithic. And with that being said, how do we establish some sense of mental and emotional stability, with the idea that with the objective being integration, but knowing that, like, it's an unfair exchange, and so it's really not possible. It's more of assimilation versus integration, and with that being said, the costs are so high, as opposed to the benefit. Now, it would be wrong of me to say that there are no benefits, because I do think that existing as a human in this world, even from a spiritual perspective, that expansion, exposure, growth, connection, experiencing different stuff, it's essentially, different aspects and forms of the creator. And so whether or not it's something to challenge us, or something to assist us, something to propel us forward, it's there for a reason. And so I do think that there's opportunities that are present, but it's definitely been a major cost. And I think that the biggest one is the fact that our culture has been compromised as a people of African descent.
Yeah, yeah. I was listening to, or I was reading some quotes by James Baldwin, and he said something to the effect that the American idea of racial progress is measured by how quickly I become white.
Yeah.
And that's just so heavy, man. And when I think about kind of in the vein of what you guys are sharing, to integrate or not to integrate, right? And it's like this ball game is being played. And if you just picture yourself as children, you see all the boys around playing kickball, and that's the game. Everybody's playing, and you're on the sideline saying, "Nah, that's not my game." Well, they're having fun over there, and I know that if I join in, I can probably have some fun too. But in the process of having some fun, I'm probably going to be mistreated a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Maybe they may trip me when I run around first base, or maybe they might give me a dirty uniform when I come into the game.
Mm-hmm.
But I still get to play some of those reindeer games, right? And so it's like you said, man. It's such a dichotomy that almost, I don't know if I should call it a catch-22, but where you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Because if you look at it on the outside of the kickball game, so to speak, there's a lot more struggle. There's a lot more isolation, because if you think about it, in the average Black American family or African American family, whatever you want to call us, there's probably not a lot of quote unquote conscious individuals, right?
Mhm.
And so, as you spoke about going to the Christmas parties or the family gatherings, and you sitting there with the stank face while everybody else is singing Christmas carols, that's essentially what you're left with in a great many of these cases, where
Mhm.
you decide to not enter the kickball game or to not fully assimilate to what's going on. And so it takes a lot of resolve to do that. And culturally, we're not insulated for the most part. Most of us are not insulated with that level of resolve to withstand being isolated like that. So it's a real tough spot to be in. And of course, it helps tremendously if you at least have your own little family unit, you and your wife, and y'all on the same page. Then you can withstand that storm a little bit better, or a lot better. But if you don't have that, if you haven't established your own thing, it's incredibly difficult, man. So I understand why most people acquiesce.
Hmm.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hmm. That's an
And
interesting point.
there's value in both perspectives. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that throughout my journey um, thus far. I've gotten, help, assistance, support, advice, from white folks and white institutions, white businesses, whatever it may be. And and it's not that.
So have we.
Yeah, so I do think that it serves a purpose, but I also think that what do you do with the support and the assistance that you get? Are you utilizing the resources that you have to do for self to help others,
Hmm.
to continue to build your brand and expose other people, or even attempt to create an alternative way so that we don't have to go back to that well?
Hmm.
And so it's really up to us to take what we can get, and not to
Oh,
take
they
per
they
se, but
they owe us.
yeah. Hmm.
But you're gonna have to
I
take it to get it.
I tell white folks that all the time when I take their money. I haven't had white clients in a long time, but I have honest conversation with all people, including white people. And I tell them this, I believe in integration if we can lead as Black people. If we can't, we're the parent people. We're older than you. Our history is more moral than you. Our home base is giving way more. So if we're giving 85% of the world's resources, we should have 85% of the say. They start looking at you, and a lot of them will say that's absolutely correct because to them it's not plausible. Well, they're wrong, and it's coming. They understand that now more. They understand 20 years ago, you're right, you're absolutely right, because in their mind, it would never be plausible. But I think that integration has really hurt in the work that the three of us do in relationships. It has hurt us the most because the value system of white people has destroyed our families. But in all areas of human interaction, we've lost. I don't think that there's been anything good about it, in my opinion. There's been nothing enriching for us as a group of people. And, to what Vaughn was saying was really interesting because, when I was talking about the holidays and Black people adaptation, Black people did something different with Christianity. Black people do something different with Islam. Black people do something different with Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism. We adapt everything because we're just the creators of everything, including the races of people that exist. I really know that to be the honest truth. And I think that if we could start there, honor thy mother and father, if we could start with those kind of concepts, we could have real integration, because at the heights of some of our nation states, we had a strong percentage of integration. We had, and I'll just skip to the end and say white people. We had, in Kemet, we had at one time 11%, 6 to 11% white people there learning and building. I just think that for us as Black people to talk about it honestly is hard because the victimization that we've suffered. But if we just go back before the Civil Rights Bill, you know, we had so many businesses in our community, doctors, lawyers, all of the successful families were present. Today, the modus operandi around America is when you get a certain level of success, financial or otherwise, class, fame, or et cetera, you move out. And I think that that hurts the presence of Black families, pays out exponentially to Black children. The absence of Black families, I think, is probably the primary thing that makes so many young people doubt love and relationship, because we could talk to them all day. If we're not touching them, if they're not seeing us, if they don't have tangible examples of what this thing looks like, you know, you're asking them to do the impossible to maintain where they are and develop something that doesn't exist and that there's so much pressure, negative pressure around.